What if I could make my own unstoppable, unbeatable, unfilterable, unavoidable, untraceable, ultimate strategy? Well, we're gonna do just that with a quick tutorial. So let's jump right into it. Okay, so for this example, we're gonna use Bitcoin and we're gonna create our own very simple strategy and then do a quick back test of the results and see how we do. This Pine editor is where all the magic happens. So if you open this, pinescript is basically its own language. If you ever want to check out all the documentation about it and all the things that you can use, you can go here to pinescript v5. It'll show you what you can do in terms of the language, what kind of operators you can use, conditions, loops, etc. It's basically its own standalone scripting language. All of that can be found here. I'll leave the link in the description. Now, it's important to note I'm using version 4 of pinescript. Let's start with just naming our strategy. Okay, now that we have our strategy named, we need our 2 simple moving averages assigned to some variables. So let's do SMA 21 and SMA 50. We're using the close of the price, and you'll see as you kind of type, it'll give you helper overlays that'll show you what you need to fill in for each portion of the function. So now that we have our 2 SMAs set to variables, what we want to do is have a variable for when we'd like to actually enter the trade. So when we want to go long and when we want to go short. And in this case, we want to go long when the 21 SMA is above the 50 and vice versa for short. So we'd write that out like this. Now what we'd like to do is actually enter the strategy itself. To do that, you use the strategy function. And we'd like to enter long when long is true. So both of these resolve to true or false as it goes through the backtest. Now let's do our short, which is basically the same thing but reversed for short. Now all that's left to do is close out the trades. Now, one thing to note is that these first variables are actually the identifiers that they use, but not too important. Let's see if we can add this to chart. This will basically run it for us. And there you go. That compiled successfully, meaning there was no errors. And you can see here, not a great strategy for Bitcoin, but it did work. So you'll have the performance summary tabs, the list of the actual trades, the properties, things like that. And what you'll notice is that this goes back to 2011. So it'll do the entire time series from 2011 to today's date, which is in 2024, or rather yesterday's date. So cool. Now that we know that this compiles, you'll notice that it shows up on the chart as well, which is a really great feature. You can see when it actually decides to go long and short, and you can use that to improvise on your strategy. Now, what we're going to do is we're actually going to improve upon this just a little bit. So one thing you might want to do is actually have these SMAs plotted on the chart because they're currently not plotted there. So let's start off with doing a plot function for the 21 SMA. Give it a title. Give it a color. Now we can copy this plot, do the same thing for the 50. And let's save that and update it. So we did get our first error, which is good because now we can show you how to fix this. I believe it's actually colored dots, if I'm not mistaken. There we go. Great, now it plotted the SMAs here actually in a different panel, which doesn't really help us. So there's an easy way to fix this. What you want to do is go back up to the strategy line and just add overlay equals true. Let's try it again. Oh, so this is good. The reason it doesn't work is when you add overlay equals true, you have to actually remove the script completely from the chart and then re-add it. So here we go. Let's see if re-adding it. Perfect. So now we have the overlay of the indicators on the actual chart using overlay equals true. Just remember to actually remove the strategy from the chart first and re-enable it. Now that we have that done, you might ask yourself, well, I don't want to backtest to 2011 or whatever the date is. We can fix that. We can make a start and end date by adding it to this script now before our entries and closes. So what you want to do is use the timestamp function and assign that to a start date. So for this, let's just use 2023 as an example. We can leave time zone blank. And we'll do January 1st to December 30th. Now what we want to do is only do our entries and closes if the time is greater than equal to start and less than or equal to the end date. So you would write that with an if statement. Now, very important, this will not work as is. Because this is an if statement, you need to indent the actual entries and closes, like so. Okay, so once you get the time variables in, now what you'll notice is, if we look back, before 2023, there's no trading, okay? And you can confirm this by going to the list of trades and just ensuring that they're all within the range of the 1st of January 2023 to whatever you set your end till. Here we added some time frame parameters to the actual script, giving us a little bit more flexibility in how we want to actually run our backtest. Let's throw this all in the garbage because we can do this a much simpler and much easier way using pinescript version 5. So if we change this to version 5, get rid of everything that we wrote. And what we'll do here is long condition will be our variable. And it actually now has a technical analysis function that you can use with a bunch of things built in, such as crossover. We can use TA again to use the SMA, and we'll do the close, 21. Second variable here being the 50. And all we want to do is, if this condition is true, almost the reverse for the short, except that we'll change crossover to cross under. Keep the variables exactly the same. Change the long condition name to short. Change the if to short and change the strategy to short along with the ID name. So my short. And there you have it. Basically the same exact strategy. Obviously we don't have the lines plotted and the time and all that other stuff, but a lot easier than writing out both entries, setting all the variables up. We pretty much did it here in 6 lines. So there's differences in the pinescript versions. I think the latest one is a lot easier to use, and that should at least get you started and thinking about how these strategies are put together. Now I'll show you one that's very complex, but also very well written in terms of code, syntax, and quality. So we have what's called Donchian Quest Research. And if we go into Pine Editor, if you ever want to look at how a strategy is coded, you hit this parentheses here, you'll see it says source code, and load it in. If you want to actually modify it and change it for yourself, you can create a working copy, and then you'll be able to modify it, add it to chart like normal, save your own copy, etc. But what I really liked about this one is that you can see it's written in the latest version, so you can use all the latest functions, but it has great comments. So you'll see a variables section here, the actual calculations here, the quantities, the long and stops, the short and stops, plotting the bars, plotting the Donchian lines, entry orders, exit stops, exit channels, etc. And if you wanted to add, your time frame of backtesting for this, you can do it right here because it's all very nicely commented. And so this would be a model script if you wanted to work on your own scripts, build your own strategies, etc. Now, last question you might have is, where do I actually find good strategies? You can go into indicators and go into community scripts, and there will be strategies here that you can use and take a look at. They will generally have this icon right here, but there's not a lot of them. Most of these are indicators. The best way to find pre-made strategies is to go to the actual TradingView website. Once you're on the TradingView website, go up to community, and you'll see here under scripts, there's a specific section for strategies. This will load up the strategy section. You can do open source only. It'll default to the popular ones. And the nice thing about this is that they will all have a quick blurb about it. This is the one that we were just looking at, Don Sheehan Quest Research. Some of them will have better explanations, some of them won't, but you can get an idea for how other folks are building their strategies and what they're actually doing inside the code. A lot of these will have strategy highlights, how to customize them, key functionality, signals, etc. This is probably the best way to find strategies to use your own creativity and build off of. Hope this helps you out. If you have any questions, shoot me a message. I'll see you out there. Happy trading.